The Toy Story 3 you know and love was almost completely different.
What?
This is the story of what Toy Story 3 was originally going to be about and why it was cancelled. In 1991, Disney made a deal with Pixar to produce 3 animated feature films together. But in 1997, just before the release of A Bug's Life, they signed a new 5-movie deal where they would evenly split production costs and profits. As a part of these deals, Disney owned the rights to all those movies' characters and sequels. This meant that by the time Pixar came to Toy Story 2, Disney didn't count that as part of the deal, because technically, Disney owned the rights to make sequels. On top of that, Disney initially wanted to release Toy Story 2 as a direct-to-video film and in a quick turnaround, giving animators limited time to finish the production. This meant that Pixar employees were working serious hours to meet the release date. Things got even more crazy when one of the animators accidentally deleted the film. Yes, when doing routine cleaning, they accidentally entered the wrong command code, leading to Toy Story 2 deleting off Pixar's internal servers. By the time they were able to stop it, 90% of the film was gone. To make the situation even worse, the backups had been broken for about a month and no one had fixed it, meaning the movie couldn't be restored. That was until they realized technical director Galen Suzman had a backup copy of the movie on her home computer because she was working at home due to recently giving birth. So carefully, Pixar transferred her computer back to the office and were able to recover nearly the entire film, only losing a couple of days' work. Because of these difficulties, plus other behind-the-scenes frustrations at Pixar, it led to the company trying to renegotiate a deal with Disney multiple times over multiple years. Eventually, as this deal was coming to an end, primary investor and chairperson of Pixar, Steve Jobs, had a falling out with then CEO Michael Eisner, so decided that they would no longer continue working with Disney after Cars. But when Disney changed CEOs in 2005 to Bob Iger, fresh conversations started back up between he and Jobs. Iger saw the value in Pixar, leading to a $7.6 billion redo merger in 2006 between the two companies. Not only this, but Bob and Steve also came to a deal that would see Disney's ABC network programs be the first pieces of content to be purchasable on Apple's iTunes store. Now, how does this all relate to the original Toy Story 3 film? Well, like I mentioned, Disney had the rights to make sequels with any of the movies Pixar made. So, in 2004, when the two companies were butting heads, Disney created a new animation studio called Circle 7 Animation, or Pixar as what Pixar referred to it as. You may be wondering why Disney didn't just use the animation studio they already had. Well, the sole purpose of Circle 7 Animation was to make sequels of all the Pixar movies. As Toy Story 2 had already been released, that meant they were up to Toy Story 3, because that's how numbers work. In 2004, Bill and Sherry Steinkeller, who had written on shows like Cheers, were hired to write Toy Story 3 for Circle 7. A couple of those drafts have since been released online. One opens in a very similar way to how the actual Toy Story 3 started, that being Andy playing with his toys, filmed in a cinematic way. The story is then essentially a whodunit mystery, following the toys as they search for Andy's grandmother's toys that had been stolen. A different draft sees the toys get lost in Mexico and meeting their Mexican off-brand equivalents. Also, Andy's mum gets married in that version. Both of these drafts were rejected in favour of a script written by Meet the Parent screenwriter, Jim Hertzfeld. However, Disney did like those other versions and said they would be in consideration when they make Toy Story 4. Overall, the plot for Jim Hertzfeld's script sees Buzz Lightyear malfunctioning, uncontrollably making all his functions go off randomly, so Andy's mum sends him to Taipei, hoping to fix him. Only he's not going there to be fixed. The Waka Waka Toy Company has issued a global-wide recall on Buzz Lightyear toys, meaning this Buzz will be replaced with a new version. When the other toys learn of this, they ship themselves to Taiwan to rescue Lightyear, who at that moment is placed on a conveyor belt with other malfunctioning toys, one of those being a Zurg. Not wanting to be crushed by the machine, Lightyear jumps off and tries to escape, only to be picked up by an executive of Waka Waka, who was told by their legal department that they needed to keep a Buzz in case they got sued. The executive takes the toy to the boardroom, where Buzz learns that they plan on recycling his model and using his parts to sell his replacement, Dax Blaster, who's essentially a transformer. Those who sent in their old Buzz will get a brand new Dax for $10 dues off. The toy also has a cat accessory named Comet. Meanwhile, Woody and the gang have made it to Taiwan before making their way through the markets and busy streets trying to track down the factory. At said factory, Buzz meets other recalled toys, including one named Jade with scissors built into their legs, and another, Rosie, who's a toy that warms up but was recalled due to the risk of overheating and catching fire. They tell him that the company's founder, Mr. Kagoi, cared about toys and always intended on fixing the ones that were broken, but the Waka Waka board only cared about profits, leading to them making decisions without telling Kagoi. So with the help from his new friends, Buzz writes Mr. Kagoi a letter to inform him of the company's situation. Back with Woody and the others, they hitched a ride on a pram which took them to a daycare where they're played with in a rough manner. When the daycare closes, the toys escape using a shopping trolley and balloons, because the daycare was on top of a really tall building. They use a bubble blower to guide them to the factory, where Buzz and his new friends are intercepted by Dax, who doesn't want Lightyear to prevent him from being the new cool toy. Dax tricks them into going up an air tube, saying it will take them to Kagoi's office, but instead it puts them back on the conveyor belt to be destroyed. Woody and the others arrive just in time to save them before their doom, but one of Lightyear's legs isn't as lucky, getting crushed by the machine. They take Buzz to the toy repair room, where they fix his leg and also give him a new chip to prevent the malfunctioning, then they go to Mr. Kagoi's office. Because Mr. Kagoi is in said room, the toys do the thing where they drop to the floor motionless. But it's like Kagoi knows they're sentient because he starts talking to them, and eventually the toys talk back. In said conversation, they tell Kagoi about everything, so declares to the company that all broken toys brought in must be repaired and sent back to their owner. At the unveiling of Dax Blaster, there are many reporters, cameras, and even Al from Al's Toy Barn. But just as the reveal of Dax is about to be made, Buzz knocks him off his pedestal, so when the curtains are drawn back, only his sidekick, Comet, is on display. The crowd thinks this is the big reveal, and love it, much to Dax's annoyance. This leads to Dax trying to have one last attempt at revenge, but it's once again a failure. So the toys box him up and send him off to Sid's house. Andy's toys then package themselves up to be shipped off home, returning to Andy in a state good as new. Even the other recalled toys get fixed and sent back to their owners. This version of Toy Story 3 was the most recent story details available, but we know that Disney hired Bob Heidenberg and Rob Muir to do rewrites on this script. The film was set to be directed by Bradley Raymond, who had done a number of Disney's direct-to-video films like The Hunchback of Notre Dame II and The Lion King 1:2. Tim Allen was also said to be on board to return as the voice of Buzz, even if Pixar weren't involved. But Tom Hanks, who voices Woody, and John Ratzenberg, who voices Ham, apparently said they wouldn't return if Pixar wasn't involved. John Ratzenberg's loyalty makes sense, as he's voiced a character in literally every Pixar movie.
Wait a minute here. They're just using the same actor over and over. What kind of a cut-rate production is this?
It's worth mentioning that Pixar claimed to not use any of these ideas for their version of Toy Story 3. This was not out of spite, but because they didn't want to be influenced by other people's ideas. Despite this, there are some notable similarities, like the daycare scene, a couple of pieces of concept art, and the fact that Dax had a cat sidekick, like Buzz did in Lightyear. However, it's also worth mentioning that parallel thinking does absolutely exist. So if Pixar say they didn't take any of their ideas, I trust that. They have extensive proof in producing incredibly interesting stories, so there wouldn't be any need for them to copy Circle 7. But on top of all of that, even if they did copy some of their ideas, it's all owned by Disney, so it's not like they would have been stealing. So, the merger between Disney and Pixar was the reason for the Circle 7 animation version of Toy Story 3 being cancelled, with us eventually getting a Pixar iteration in 2010, 2 years after Circle 7's was scheduled to be released. Disney shut down Circle 7 in May of 2006, only 2 years after the company started, and 4 months after the merger went through, due to it no longer being required, as the Pixar sequels would now be produced exclusively through that animation studio. As for the 168 employees at Circle 7, about 136 of them were transferred to the Walt Disney Animation Department, so all things considered, at least not too many people were affected. Personally, I actually really like this version of Toy Story 3. I think one of the great elements about it is that, despite some of the ideas having since been used, there are many differences to the point where this idea actually could be made in the future. As I already mentioned, Disney had the rights to make sequels to Toy Story, A Bug's Life, Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, and Cars. So not only was Circle 7 in development on Toy Story 3, but also Monsters Inc. 2, Lost in Scaradise, and Finding Nemo. Again. So let me know in the comments if you would like me to make a video about either of those. But thanks for watching. Don't forget to absolutely obliterate those like, subscribe, and share buttons. I'm just kidding. Only do it with enough force that it registers. I don't want any of you breaking whatever device you're watching this on.